Hey everyone, Bramflakes here with another video. We'll be starting a new kind of series for the channel where I talk about rather, a bit more of the miscellaneous things that happen with Turn Return. These won't necessarily be guide videos or highlight videos or tier lists. These will just be kind of these concepts or these patterns in the game that I want to bring up and let you guys know about on a broader scope. So this video today, we'll be talking about 5 characters in Eternal Return that have never been bad. They've almost always been high tier, if not top tier, in Eternal Return. So let's just go ahead and get started, shall we? So first we'll be talking about Silvia. Silvia is a character who is known for being an insane character starting at level 16. The way her kit works is that she has a human form and she has a bike form, and the bike form is unlocked through her ultimate. And each time you put a point into her ultimate, the cooldown of that bike form drops a little bit more. And so conceptually, she sounds like a character that takes a long time to scale because you need skill points and all of her abilities because the damage on her bike form doesn't scale with the ultimate levels, it scales with your ability levels. However, there's a lot of builds that come out for Silvia that allow her to spike and deal damage a bit faster or a bit earlier. And so the reason why Silvia is kind of popping off even in Season 6 is because the, I guess, age-old tale for at least this season was that Silvia can't play the game until level 16. However, you know, innovation goes a long way, and a build has been found for Silvia where she can actually fight early and she actually can pull off pressure on early, which removes her main, I guess, low point of her game plan. So she has a high difficulty curve, she has a lot of combos, she is quite complex, but you really cannot go wrong with learning her. Just as a quick summary, if you're curious to see how consistent she is, out of the 5 total completed seasons in Eternal Return, Silvia has not landed up in top 3 a singular time, and that was in Season 2 where she ended top 11. So that means Season 1, 3, 4, and 5, there's been a Silvia placing top 3 in the Korean leaderboard, which is absolutely crazy in terms of consistency. For the second character, we'll be talking about Dailin. Dailin as a character is a little more complicated than Silvia is when it comes to judging her overall power, because she doesn't quite have the raw consistency in terms of leadboard placing. However, when Dailin is good, you can see that she's good because there will always be a lot of Dailins in any game you play. It doesn't matter what region you're in, EU, NA, Korea, South America. South America I don't know about actually, but when Dailin is remotely viable, she will always be in your games because her kit is very fluid, her kit is very fun, she's really mobile, her ultimate is a execute and an escape button that's really fulfilling to pull off. And you'll just see a lot of people try her out because she's, again, pretty fun to play. Her combos are straightforward, and there's also a lot of complexity with how you utilize your passive autos or not utilize them, or weave in your drinking to get more passive autos, etc. And also the fact that she's one of the only real melees in this list means that you get to play a lot around, you know, front to back spacing, where you try and bait ranged characters into your kind of effective zone, or even outplay other melee characters by using your drink to dodge a lot of damage. So she does have an issue where she kind of needs to snowball a lot, or to win games and dominate games, but the thing is that you don't need to dominate every game in order to climb in this game. You just need to have a few pop-off games here and there to give you those like really bulky amount of points. And in the other games, you can just stay alive, and while you won't get as many points, or you might even lose a few points, you're still going to mitigate a lot of that loss that you would have otherwise gained in any other competitive game where, losing is I guess like equal loss to winning. But in Eternal Return, you can mitigate your losses because of how the ranking and placement systems work. And also, Dailin just has so many routes possible. She has Love, Nunchuck, and she can go anywhere she wants if you're afraid of being contested on your main route. So we're going to talk about Adela next. Adela is the chess lady of Lumia Island. Adela is one of those characters who has an incredibly high learning curve because there was a point in time where she was considered fairly weak, and then a certain person in Korea picked her up and immediately proved that she was anything but weak. So you'll see a trend with this game where a lot of people will say their character is weak or their character is not as good as people say they are, but if their character is genuinely complex enough with enough skill depth, a lot of characters end up being way stronger than you would expect, whether it's due to finding a better build or just playing more efficiently around your cooldowns. But Adela is a great example of that. Adela, as a character, she can utilize skill amp, she can utilize crit, so it's always like, if she feels quote unquote weak, it's always a game of finding out what the next best route is and how to optimize your damage output. And so Adela as a character, she's very mobile, and she has some crazy burst damage through her pawns and chess pieces interacting. She has a really strong early game power spike almost no matter what her bounce is because of how her pieces interact. And she is really safe. She has one of the best mobility spells in the game. Her ultimate is this iframe that also goes into a huge damage nuke. And she also has a lot of abilities to give her a lot of free vision from a very safe distance. The only issue is that she is arguably skill shot dependent because her autos, you can't dodge autos, right? And her autos do hit very hard, but a lot of her damage does come through her skills landing. So if you're trying to learn her and you're not quite having success, it might be because you're missing a lot of skill shots. And so you have to know how to hit those buttons, you have to know how to hit those pawns, knight forks into rooks, and then ulting them. But she is very rewarding. Adele is another character who has never ever actually been terrible. She's always been very good. Number 4 is going to be Hyejin. Hyejin is the character we mentioned earlier with Silvia. Or I actually don't know if I mentioned it because I've taken this thing multiple takes, but Hyejin, again, you can see how strong she is because the top Hyejin player in Korea is always, every time, is in top 5. I didn't even bother checking to see the season histories because I'm pretty sure Satin, who is a Korean Hyejin, has always ended up at least top 5. And it's funny because a lot of Hyejin players will cope and say she's weak or like a certain build is weaker or a playstyle is weaker, but it doesn't matter if one playstyle is weak because Hyejin is such a versatile character that you can play her in multiple different ways and always somehow manage to eke out efficiency and a lot of effectiveness. So she's really, again, you'll notice that a common theme with all these characters is that they're very mobile. Hyejin has one of the best mobility spells in the game. It takes her across gigantic walls that no one else has any business going over. And Hyejin also has a very strong early game power spike. She has a lot of damage locked behind her ultimate, and if she hits you and combos you, a lot of the times if you're on the receiving end, you feel like there's nothing else you could have done. So she has a very uninteractive combo if she hits her spells, and you can really utilize that if you're a good player to just make sure your opponent stays still and dies to you for free. We'll be talking about Jackie next. Jackie is probably the simplest character by a very large margin on this tier, or not on this tier list, on this video, because Jackie doesn't have the complexity that any of the other characters has. She has a very straightforward kit, but she's very bulky. She has great mobility. Again, her W gives her massive movement speed. Her E takes her very far on a very generous cooldown. And most of all, she autos very hard due to how her kit works. Basically the way it works is that her W gives her a bonus AD modifier if her target is bleeding, and her Q and ultimate apply the bleed. So if she misses her Q, she can still apply this debuff to you that enhances her auto attack damage. So almost no matter what you do, if she auto attacks you once, she's almost guaranteed a ton of auto attack damage. And what ends up happening a lot is that people either can't play around it because of how the Jackie set up the fight, or people will misplay into her auto attack damage, to which point Jackie just autos you like 6 or 7 times and you're just immediately dead. So even though Jackie has by far the most exploitable kit on this list, she is just so effective in what she does that it doesn't matter if she's exploitable because she can just stat check you and murder you. And again, she is so simplistic in her kit that she is constantly in any ladder. Like, it doesn't matter if she's considered bad by her mains, they're always going to play her because of how safe she is. At worst, the Jackie is probably the most prolific rat in a turn return. And at best, she's the most prolific rat that can also kill you in 3 autos. So Jackie is almost never a bad choice when it comes to choosing a main for this game. And finally, we kind of have an honorable mention, Celine, who was released fairly recently compared to the other 5 characters we've talked about. She has probably the highest skill ceiling in the game, and her difficulty is so high to the point that there's only really 1 or 2 players in the entire game that can pull her off to a top tier level. However, she's so crazy good if you can play her to that point that I think she's considered to be the best character in the game, full stop. But again, she's so complex, she's so hard, like she requires mechanics, you need good decision making, but you also need to have like fingers that push buttons fast enough to pull off her combo and all these other like subtle details. It's just, her difficulty is so high that it would probably be, it would almost be a non-exaggeration to say that she is harder than all the other 5 characters in this tier list combined because of how like expressive her kit is. But that comes at a cost where, again, she's super difficult. If you were even just not, what's the best way to put this? If you were not incredibly insane at Celine, you are not going to perform. You have to be so good at her to even get some amount of, I guess, like success out of her. And again, she is also new, so that's the reason why she's not joining the other 5 in this list. She is very difficult and very hard, but if you really want to put yourself through that grind and learn how to play Celine, please, by all means, go for it. But yeah, that'll be all for this video. It'll be a little bit shorter, but if you guys were kind of curious about choosing a main and you want someone who's very resilient to the trials of time, any of these 6 characters are going to be fine. Obviously, again, Celine is a little bit less fine because you have to get really good at her first, but every character here, they have never, ever been bad for longer than maybe like a month at most. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a good night, and I'll see you guys next time on the channel. Bye-bye.